Alright, all you music makers, video game players, and entertainers from all around the world, welcome to the 560th edition of Music Village. I am your host from the East Coast, DJ Smokey, bringing you the best for the North, South, East, and West that the world of music and games has to offer. And seeing the fact that not only we were able to defeat traffic to bring this show into your homes the best way we can, and for the final weekend of this month of madness too. Nice! So without any further ado, I think it's time for us to explain to you guys and gals at home what's going to happen for this very special milestone traffic defeating edition of Music Village. Because we kick things off with a very special Unearthed album edition of the Music Village CD review. And boy, the rabbit hole we had to go down to get this one, folks. It's a big one. Next up on the plate, we go ahead and check out some cool video games from a planet far away from here and from the steaming sheet alike for another edition of the Friday night Greenlight. And speaking of the color green, and you might as well add some gold in there too, for a very special Jack of all trades edition of the DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories, and probably one of my greatest victories to date that probably drove my sister insane too, hence the reason why it's in the month of madness. Next up on the plate, we go ahead and find out what you independent artists got planned for this weekend for another edition of the Indy for the weekend, which is me giving you guys local concert information from local artists performing in a local area live near you. Then finally, last but not least, and hopefully before the evening traffic gets any worse or before you gotta change that calendar, we wrap up this show yet another edition of the Up to Speed News, which is me giving you guys news stories from this week from, you guessed it, all around the world. I guess with that said, I might as well tell Carl and the maestro to kick up the beats, crank out the tunes, and most importantly, let that green confetti rain to shoot off another milestone we were able to hit during rush hour traffic. Cause it's time for us to bring some fun and delight on your Friday afternoon/night. Only here, right here on Music Village. So let's get this rush hour show started, folks. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and I guess a couple of you music lovers stuck in traffic, welcome back to Music Village. And boy, oh boy, I got a feeling the thank you list to all the indie artists we've talked to for the past several weeks is going to be immense by the end of this show. And speaking of people we gotta thank, folks, I think it's time for us to go into another edition of the Music Village CD review. And the album we have up on the list is from an artist that is, well, let's just say it was in different places because it comes from a band that was called Super Bright Light at one point, but another band that is known by its revenge with their said album of rock and roll Retribution. And as usual, when it comes to reviewing albums around here, we review in only 4 ways. Where in the world did we get or find this album or the band? What was our favorite songs a part of the said album? How did this album make us feel? And do we recommend this album for you, the fans at home? And Carl and the Maestro over in the corner said if you could find it, and I rebutted by saying, hey, they can find it. I'm going to give them the places by the end of the show. Don't you worry. But with that being said, and with Carl and the Maestro popping off at the mouth, as some would say, I think we begin this musical journey, and a big one at that, with where in the world we were able to find this album and this band and the story that comes along with it, because it's huge, folks. So buckle up. We got a big one for you. Because where in the world we were able to find this album is absolutely insane. Because first off, we originally thought a part of the video game back in 2003 of Ford Racing 2, which I thought was Ford Team Racing 2, but it was Ford Racing 2, with the song that they had featured in it that was called Nothing to Lose. Now, originally, I thought it was a song from Weezer, and it reminded me of something from the song they did back in 2002 called Keep Fishing, which featured the Muppets. But on further note, I realized, wait a minute, that doesn't sound like the lead singer of Weezer, and at the same time, it's a pretty cool song. So, with the help of Mickey James, and yes, that's his name on YouTube, who would end up going down the rabbit hole to find out more about this band, which was a band that decided to put its feelers out to try to get a record deal or to try to get noticed in the music world, and would release a couple of songs, including the one we mentioned before, Nothing to Lose, which was actually a demo version of the song compared to the one that's featured during this album. Now, after that didn't work, they would decide to re-record the song later, a part of the album mentioned right now of Rock and Roll Retribution, that was released in 2005 with the band It's Revenge. And unfortunately, unlike the original version of the song, it would be an E-flat tuning to the standard version of the original version of the song that was featured a part of the record. Alright, so if everybody's caught up with that part, here's the part that really tripped me out, is when I found out that approximately 3 hours later, or 3 hours later, I mean 3 years later, when we found out, thanks to Mickey James' information, that they would go on to another band that was entitled The Damn Automatics. And the Damn Automatics will perform the same songs featured during this said band, or during this said album that we mentioned before from It's Revenge. But going into further digging down the rabbit hole, we would also find out that the band would go by another name that would go by the name of, and according to Carl and the Maestro, Flashback Heart Attack, who would get another album that was called Of the Red Engine, and after that said album featured several of the original songs and the original bandmates that were featured during it, they would decide to move on to become a cover band. So, in short, folks, the people who were a part of It's Revenge and a part of Super Bright Light, which was the original people who recorded the song we mentioned before of Nothing to Lose, would eventually go on to become the band of the Damned Automatics after It's Revenge decided to go away, and then eventually finally settle on the name of, and according to Carl and the Maestro, trying to dig as fast as they could from this said hole that we've dug ourselves into, finally deciding to settle on the said album name of Flashback Heart Attack. Now, unfortunately, we don't know if this said band is still active to this day, but at the same time, the fact that this band had still all the same members with the exception of the lead singer that was featured during the said song of Nothing to Lose is pretty incredible. Now, another person who would bring to my attention to add on to this giant oversized wormhole that hopefully a lot of you are still following along with would go by the name of Verminio on YouTube, would say that they would come up with another song that was known as Down, that was featured a part of Ford Racing 2, and another demo song that was featured during a collaboration album that featured not only reggae and hip-hop songs. Really? But now that everybody knows what this band is all about, and hopefully we explained it the best we could with the cliff notes that we got, and how did we able to get this album? In short, thankfully, thanks to a couple of people we know that led us down this rabbit hole. In the last band that we mentioned before, we were able to find this album on Amazon and was able to pick it up immediately. And we have the CD right before us right now. So it's absolutely awesome that we were able to have it and to actually bring it to you guys and gals' attention out there for how cool this said album and CD is. Now, what was our favorite songs a part of this said album? Well, for one, Nothing to Lose was definitely one of our favorite songs, but the other song that was also our favorite song a part of this album would have to be the song of Kill the Radio, which I do believe will be the outro song for either Music Village for this week or possibly for Under the Radar. We're still trying to decide. Either way you look at it, folks, it's definitely a good song to wrap up the show with, and we're definitely going to do that in the near future. And how did this album make us feel? Well, while we closed our eyes and listened into a couple of those songs while rushing down the roads this past morning while at work, I would have to say it reminded us of the old days where we used to be a cab driver trying to get people home as safely as possible while trying to rush through traffic, which is a pretty fun thing to do. And of course, I was doing the speed limit, Carl and the Maestro, before you say anything. I was. And do we recommend this album for you, the musical fans at home? Well, if you want to listen to an album that was featured by a band that was featured during a classic game that only had one album to their name, but yet still was able to bring a musical impact strong enough for us to go down a rabbit hole 22 years strong to bring it into your homes as of today, then I recommend you go out there and cop that disc. And if you could, find the members of the band and definitely give them a big thank you for their awesome music, because, yeah, the fact that we had to go down a rabbit hole just to find them is not good, and that's the reason why this show exists, folks. It really is. And with that said, folks, and to celebrate the fact that we were able to find this album, I think it's time for us to head back to that music and feature one of the songs from this said album during this said show. And Carl and the Maestro agrees. And the song we're gonna go with, folks, from It's Revenge is none other than Nothing to Lose. So with that being said, I think it's time for us to head back into those musical tunes. And when we return, we'll be back with more Music Village right after this. So don't wear your horns out in afternoon traffic just yet, folks, and stay tuned. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Music Village. Now, here's hoping in the near future you indie artists out there step up to the plate and hopefully bring music in to Music Village Radio, because we really want to make sure that your music gets heard so it doesn't end up like Super Bright Light or It's Revenge or the other band that they were named that just got lost in the ether. And according to Carl and the Maestro, they're getting their flashlight and shovel ready to dig up some cool music as the show moves forward. Good, because I'm gonna need help with that. A lot of help. And according to Carl and the Maestro, yes you are. Yes you are. But besides getting help from Carl and the Maestro with a mining helmet on now to dig up some cool musical tunes, I think it's time for us to go to the stars to search for some games from a planet far away from here and from the Steam machine alike for a 10-game milestone edition of the Friday Night Greenlight. And the first game that we have up comes from the itch.io page of Atom Atomic. Yeah, Atom Atomic. A nice name, by the way. With their said game of Prince of Prussia. And this game automatically reminds me of a what-if scenario if Assassin's Creed was in a Castlevanian castle. Yeah, with a little hint of Prince of Persia in there as well, too. And here's hoping in the near future for this said game, and Colin Michael said no grappling hooks. Cut me off right at the jump and said no grappling hooks for this game. Really? Especially for that cliff over there on the side, you're gonna need a grappling hook. And he said, nope, no grappling hooks. All right, well, if we fall, here's hoping that we can reverse time like they did in Prince of Persia. And no time technology here. Okay? Okay. And the next game that we have up, speaking of time technology, comes from none other than the itch.io page of Kulrik, or Kulurik? We'll go with the second one just in case, with their said game of Untime. And this game automatically reminds me of Clock Stoppers. Or was it Stopwatchers? It was that one Nickelodeon film that featured that kid who had that watch that could stop time and control things. He did a lot of damage in that film, but either way you look at it, folks, here's hoping in the near future for this said film that not only you get a chance to actually bend time to your will before the clock breaks, because according to Colin the Maestro, you have to actually get it fixed because somebody breaks it, but also maybe, just maybe, a chance for you to have a backup one in the form of an hourglass. And Colin the Maestro said, wouldn't that take all day for it to work? No, you're thinking of the sundial version of it. See, if it was the sundial version, that would take longer. So, yeah, hoping for an hourglass is a little better, because sundial only works during the sun, unless you get a good street light and then can magically work it that way. But besides me trying to explain alternative forms of time travel to Carl into my show that doesn't involve a DeLorean or a phone booth, the next game that we have up comes from the itch.io page of Slowpoke, KM Slowpoke that is, with their said game of Outlaw. And this game automatically reminds me of the rail shooting game that I played back in the day over my uncle's house. And that was for the Sega Genesis, and no, it didn't involve any Western-like themes to it. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this said game that not only you get a chance to shoot around this place to find a bonus weapon to help you out, just like in that rail shooter game of old, but maybe, just maybe, a chance for you to play alongside with your friends too. Cause I got a feeling you're gonna need some help, especially against Billy the Kid, who may or may not be in this game. And Colin Maestro said he may be in the game because it's the Old West. See, I'm not the only person who thought that, right? But besides me thinking about Billy the Kid trying to shoot you down just 5 minutes before high noon, the next game that we have up comes from the developers Nite with their said game of Merchant 64. And this game automatically reminds me of, I would have to say this game really reminds me of Harvest Moon? And Carlin and Maestro give me the thumbs up over in the corner for that one. And here's hoping in the near future for this game that has a little bit of Animal Crossing details to it as well too, that not only you get a chance to have your own farm for this game, but maybe, just maybe, a chance for you to have a couple of different merchant shops around the different towns you live in. And apparently, according to Call of the Maestro, not too entirely sure if you can have that, but they're hoping for an ox and wagon cart. Yeah, especially traveling through that forest that I got a feeling has some form of dangerous animal in it. I'm hoping for that too. And yeah, they said, what dangerous animal? Didn't you see that vulture? That vulture right above that other screenshot, right over there to the left. Yeah, that's dangerous. I want to get away from that. But besides calls in the maestro saying I'm paranoid of worrying about vultures, and there's something worse with this next screenshot, which comes from the developers M6 Riz with their said game of Short Snow. And this game automatically reminds me of not only the Cabela hunts, but with a little hint of, I would have to say Go West if it was in 3D. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this set game that not only you get a place to stay while you're trying to survive out in the cold, and according to Call of the Maestro, you can find an empty house, sure, and secondly, maybe, just maybe, a chance to get that car to start so you can avoid that wolf and that bear I saw over in the corner trying to chase you down. And Call of the Maestro said you survived a plane crash, so if you can find fuel for it, sure. Oh yeah, good luck with that, now that I think about it. But besides trying to survive a plane crash and somehow get a car started in the process, the next game that we have up comes from the developers Technician team with their said game of Crime Scene Technician. And this game automatically reminds me of an episode of Law & Order SVU with a little hint of NCIS in there as well too. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this set game that not only it comes with a cool theme song like both of those shows we just listed, but maybe, just maybe, a chance for you to have some backup to help you actually investigate the crime scene. Cause I got a feeling if it's anything like Condemned, you might end up in trouble trying to solve a crime. And Carl and the Maestro said, what type of trouble? Well, what if the murderer is still in the house? So yeah, a little backup would be appreciated, because hitting them in the head with a lamp might count as evidence that you used on a crime scene, and you might need another witness for that before you end up in a crime yourself. Carl and the Maestro said, good idea, all right? And the next game that we have up comes from the developers Image Power SA with their said game of Haunted House Renovator. Haunted House Renovator? Really? Really? We're renovating haunting houses now. Okay, well, this game automatically reminds me of the movie The Haunted Mansion, and I hope that this does not end up like the other movie Call of the Maestro said I should have mentioned, The House on Haunted Hill. Because if it does, I got a feeling things are not going to end well, and seeing the fact that a ghost just knocked down the chandelier and the two chairs you put in the living room, I got a feeling something bad's gonna happen, and I don't think Owen Wilson's gonna be there to save us. And Carl and Maestro said he needed to be saved during that film too. Yeah, you're right. And I got a feeling we might need to be saved too. I don't know. But besides trying to survive a horror film that might come to life the second we touch that house, the next game that we have up comes from the developers Blendo Games with their said game of Skin Deep. And this game automatically reminds me of, I would have to say Alien with a little hint of, and Carl and the Maestro said destroy all humans with the way that things look around here, with a little hit of Team Fortress too. Now, here's hoping in the near future for this set game that you can get a chance to become the alien that's in that ship. And apparently, according to Carl and the Maestro, no, you're the person trying to save the ship when you're outnumbered and outgunned and have no shoes. Well, that's just horrible. Well, I'm hoping for no broken glass, and they already show you on the ground trying to pick glass out of your foot. Oh, that's just great. That's just great. You know what that is, Carl and Maestro? Great. Very great. But besides me saying great more times than a box of Frosted Flakes, the next game that we have up comes from the developers Trampoline Tales with their set game of Maze Mice. Ooh. Ah. And this game automatically reminds me of Pac-Man with a little hit of R-Type in there as well too. or more or less Raiden, seeing the fact that it's from a top side view than it is a side view where you're shooting giant oversized aliens. But in this case, most likely cats. And here's hoping in the near future for this game that not only you get a chance to design your own maze, but maybe, just maybe, a chance to play alongside with your friends or get in one of those weird Tom and Jerry moments by getting some cool power-ups to help it happen. And according to Carl and the Maestro, you can, but it will cost you a lot of cheese. Don't you mean cheddar if you're talking about money? No, they literally said cheese and pointed toward the screen where you have to pay 8 cheeses to get some form of kneading and knitting needles to help you out. Kneading needles, of course. But besides that ballpark error and kneading needles that I might have to get in the near future, the last but not least game that we have up for this week comes from none other than Frozen District with their set game of House Flipper 2. And this game automatically reminds me of one of those HGN channels of those house flipping moments that you would experience during it, minus the cameras and the budget and the crew. According to Carl and the Maestro, you can keep the crew and the budget because you have friends to help you fix up these houses. Oh, nice! Well, here's hoping in the near future for this set game that you can buy better equipment depending on how good the job goes, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to have someone actually test live in the house you made, because you're gonna need a good review for it. And according to Carl and the Maestro, they're not sure, but they'll live in house number 3 if it's available. I would have to agree, I might take house number 1. But besides making housing selections, folks, I think if you guys want to go ahead and check out any of these cool games for yourselves from a planet far away from here, yet close enough to be beamed into your houses in less than 24 hours, then you can go ahead and check it out on the Free Game Planet page, only known as freegameplanet.com, and check out all of those cool, weird, strange, frightening, and scary games that are just out of this world. If you also want to go ahead and check out any other cool games that are still coming in from the Steam machine via the cargo ship, cargo plane, or even subterranean train that is currently rumbling underneath your toes, then you can go ahead and head on over to the store.steampower page of one man only known as store.steampower.com and check out that Indy button while at the same time looking out for that magical upcoming button that'll have a whole bunch of games waiting for you down the rabbit hole that you might be traveling down as we speak. And watch out for the white rabbit around there because it might make you feed your head to actually play the games, which, according to Carl and the Maestro, completely unnecessary. So don't do that. And I guess with that said, folks, we might as well head back into that music with our next song, which comes from the Audio Bullies with their song Of the Snow. And when we return, we'll be back with yet another new DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories right after this. So don't get lost in that afternoon traffic just yet, folks, and stay tuned. Alright, all you video gamers, welcome to yet another handheld duo Luigi Jack of all trades edition of the DJ Smokey's True Video Game Story. And with a title like that, we decided to go with the game none other than the new Super Mario Brothers Luigi Jack edition. So without any further ado, I think it's time for us to grab a couple of DSs, make sure they're charged, and hand out the cards that we're dealt to try to win as we get ready to paint the picture. right? This video game story began approximately 15, nay strike that, 14 years ago, right after the embarrassing losses I took to my sister for Super Mario 64 DS and the unachievable high scores that she set for it. Now, after she did all of that noise, when I finally ended up getting my own version of the Mario game that was New Super Mario Bros., I realized three things. 1, it's a fun game. 2, there's a competitive multiplayer in it. And 3, you don't even need the game to have it to be a part of that competitive mode. Just link up with someone else and let the fun begin. And when the second I told my sister, hey, they got some mini games in here you haven't beaten me in yet, wanna try them? She would say, all right. Now, the first couple of games we would play not only would be the Snowball Shaloom, as well as the Laticoon Launch, even the Run Ba Bun, and my least favorite of them all, because my sister almost broke her DS trying to play it to beat me in it, of the Whack-A-Monty, even the speed challenge that we had to undergo. Yeah, let's just say she smoked me in just about all of those games until we got to the table part of the programming. Now, the games that were on the table were all based off of popular games you would play in Vegas, including picture poker and as well as the said memory match, which another game my sister smoked me in, and thank you for the reminder, Colin the Maestro. But one game she wouldn't be able to topple me in was a little game they had called Luigi Jack, which was based off the popular blackjack game of old, where you had to make sure you got 21 or under for the cards for the game. Rules seem simple, right? But I had a trade secret thanks to my mother. And that is always make sure you stay once you hit 18, and they're guaranteed to go over with the next 2 to 3 cards. And after practicing with my mom with those set lessons for well over an entire summer leading up to this moment, I would be able to look at my sister and tell her, yeah, let's go play it. And while she was in the kitchen making a bowl of cereal and while I was getting the cards that I was dealt, I realized that I would have a king and a 10 right off the bat, and I would stay. And my sister, who would have a 13, would decide to hit. And when she decided to hit, what would happen? Well, she would immediately go over because the next card would be another king. That would be victory number 1. Victory number 2 would be a little bit suspicious in her book, because when I only had 13, I decided to stay, and my sister was suspicious about it. Said, why did you decide to stay at 13? I said, I got a bad feeling about that next card, but you can take it. And she ended up taking the card, and it turned out to be an ace that gave her a 19, and she would try to hit again and would immediately bust because it would turn out to be a jack. And my sister, from the kitchen, I would hear her scream, darn it! Which would make me laugh, but at the same time would really get me in some trouble, because the next hand that would get dealt to me would be something that she would call a complete bowl of nonsense. And the reason why she would say that, folks, is because that next hand I would end up getting not only a Luigi Jack or a blackjack using not only the ace of spades, but an ace of said 10, or according to Colin the Maestro, the ace of 10s. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it. Either way you look at it, folks, it would be 2 cards under the spade variety, and I would start singing the ace of spades as she made her way back up with a bowl of cereal. Now, thankfully for me, at that one initial moment, she was holding on to that bowl of cereal, because she would have clocked me in the back of the head after I would win that game, and the next game following where I would get yet another Luigi Jack, causing her to curse the sun and the moon at that one initial moment by saying, darn it, once again. And after that said game, I would ask her, hey, you want to play again? You want to try your luck? For her to immediately say, I will never play you in that game again for as long as I live, because I got a feeling you and Luigi are cheating in it. And to this day, folks, she lived up to her promise, because every single time I would call her to play the game, she would refuse to play. But trust me, ladies and gentlemen, one day we will have a follow-up video game story where I beat her once again in a classic game of Luigi Jack. Just so I can say I have one game against her over the 5,000 she has against me. Come on now, you gotta even the score up someday. I had to have one. And I guess with that said, folks, wraps it up for a very special Jack of all trades mini game winning edition of the DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories. And with that, we'll be back with more right after this. So stay tuned. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Music Village. And yeah, about that video game story, if you're wondering at home, unfortunately we lost the game. And yeah, we can't challenge our sister to Luigi Jack. But according to Carl and the Maestro, they're currently on eBay right now trying to get the game and want us to message our sister to let her know that game on. I don't think she's gonna know what that means, but I got a feeling once she catches on, she's gonna immediately tell me no. Because I know how that works. All the time. All the time. But besides us trying to challenge our sister to a game of Luigi Jack for the first time in almost 2 decades, I think it's time for us to go ahead and check out what you independent artists got planned for this weekend and one of my favorite parts of the show. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, none other than the Indy for the weekend, which is me giving you guys local concert information from local artists performing in a local area live near you. And we kick things off with Friday, March 28th. And the first band that we have up is Mike Granja with the Coots, who's going to be performing at the Kaluza Italian Village in Caldwell, New Jersey at 6:30 p.m. The Chicago Rewired is going to be performing at the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Mike Hertz is going to be performing at the Asbury Hotel in Asbury Park, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Gerald Esposito is going to be performing at the Villa Vittoria Restaurante in Brick, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Lelicia is going to be performing at the Panther Pub in Alamucci Township, New Jersey at 8 p.m. Exit 11 is going to be performing alongside with Brian Kirk and the Jerks, who's all going to be performing at the Crossroads in Garwood, New Jersey at 8 p.m. Jeff Ruby is going to be performing at the Mad Batter Restaurant and Bar in Cape May, New Jersey at 8:30 p.m. Dave Nemetz is going to be performing at the Rusty Nail in Cape May, New Jersey at 8:45 p.m. And to finally wrap things up for Friday night, you can see Dave Fields, who's going to be performing at the Mr. Pies in Highland Park, New Jersey at 9 p.m. And on Saturday, March 29th, you can see these following bands performing in a local area near you live. Sherry Lynn is going to be performing at the Rush Lounge in Atlantic City, New Jersey at 5 p.m. The new Watch Dogs Blues Band is going to be performing at the Old Canal Inn in Nutley, New Jersey at 8 p.m. Or according to Carl and the Maestro, 6:30 p.m. A typo on your part, huh? And they said, yeah, teleprompter broke. But besides mechanical issues, folks, next band we have up is the Anderson Council with the Melancholy Kings, who's all going to be performing at the Ghost Hawk Brewing in Clifton, New Jersey at 6:30 p.m. Chip Green with Craig Greenberg, a green team of sorts, is both going to be performing at the Brown Room at Congress Hall in Cape May, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Pam McCoy is going to be performing at the Colts Neck Club, or the Colts Neck Pub in Colts Neck, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Russell Norkovic is going to be performing at the Elaine's Cape May in Cape May, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Whiskey Crossing is going to be performing at the Skylands Craft Beer and Wine Garden in Wantage, New Jersey at 7 p.m. The Coots is going to be performing at the MCQ's Pub and Lake Lenape in Newton, New Jersey at 7 p.m. Rip is going to be performing at the Jimmy's Bar and Grill in Kearney, New Jersey at 8 p.m. And to finally wrap things up for Saturday night, you can see Rebecca Lang-Ferrento, who's going to be performing at the Cape May Singer-Songwriter Festival in Cape May, New Jersey at 11 p.m. Just 1 hour shy of midnight, too. And on Sunday, March 30th, you can see these following bands performing in a local area near you live. Jim Sloan and Friends is going to be performing at the Red Brick Tavern in Conroe, Texas at 11:30 a.m. Trout Fishing in America is going to be performing at the Poor David's Pub in Dallas, Texas at 2 p.m. Bernie Pearl with Ray Bailey and Elizabeth Hangen and 3 other bands yet to be announced is all going to be performing at the Grand Annex in San Pedro, California at 3 p.m. The Monthly Barbecue is going to be performing at the NCOM Cyber Hall in Norman, Oklahoma at 3 p.m. J-Side is going to be performing at the Saraville Quarter in Pensacola, Florida at 4 p.m. You can also see Vibery, who's going to be performing at the Saraville Quarter in Pensacola, Florida at 4 p.m. And apparently, according to Carl and the Maestro, different side of the quarter. Oh, gotcha. Anyway, next band we have up is Todd Allen Hendry, who's going to be performing at the Todd Hendry Theater in Panama City Beach, Florida at 6 p.m. The Oxys with the Nunchucks is both going to be performing at the Sticky's Rock and Roll Chicken Shack in Little Rock, Arkansas at 6:30 p.m. Dixon's Violin is going to be performing at the Gorton Center in Lake Frost, Illinois at 6:45 p.m. Feed the Beast with Innocence, Far Below, and Pocho is all going to be performing at the Brick by Brick in San Diego, California at 7 p.m. And to finally wrap things up for Sunday night, you can see Solid Riff, who's going to be performing at the Laguna Bob in South Padre Island, Texas at 8 p.m. And on Monday, March 31st, you can see these following bands performing in a local area live near you. Magic Monday Gaming Night is going to be performing at the NCOM Cyber Hall in Norman, Oklahoma at 4 p.m. Ricky Ray is going to be performing at the Main Street Station Bistro, Cabaret, and Piano Bar in Guerneville, California at 6 p.m. Duo Over is going to be performing at the Laguna Bob in South Padre Island, Texas at 6 p.m. And aren't they known as the Do-Over? Apparently, according to Call of the Mice Show, a typo. Okay. Anyway, next band we have up is Guy Covington Live, who's going to be performing at the Aretha's Jazz Cafe in Detroit, Michigan at 6 p.m. You can also see Flormani Holiday, along with the New Bohemians, who's going to be performing at the Saxton Pub in Austin, Texas at 6 p.m. Zach Johnson is going to be performing at the Red Brick Tavern in Conroe, Texas at 7 p.m. And to finally wrap things up for Monday night and for all the bands we're going to mention for this week and for this month for this show, you can see the Rob Gracia Band, who's going to be performing at the Luna Bob in South Padre Island, Texas at 9 p.m. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out the complete list of bands that we couldn't list during this very broadcast, and trust me folks, there were a lot of them, you can head on over to ReverbNation.com to check out the complete list of bands that we couldn't list during this very broadcast. And while you're over there, listen to a couple of their cool tunes too. Trust me, they're worth the listen. And like we say at the end of all of these skits, go out there, support your local artists, and see these guys perform live. And trust me, they'll love you for it. And I guess with that said, we might as well head back to the music and continue to listen in to the rest of these Diamonds in the Rough. Only here, right here, on Music Village. So don't wear your horns out in open traffic just yet, folks, and stay tuned. We're back with the afternoon/evening show that fought rush hour traffic to have a milestone show that's a little bit on time, only known as Music Village. And I think we've broken the 56-week long or 56 milestone long streak that we were able to have of shows that were incredibly late. Well, with the exception of you SoundCloud fans out there, and we'll explain more during the outro. And no, actually, I think it's better to explain now because this show will be uploaded on SoundCloud just a wee bit later than what you're expecting due to the fact that we have to chop it into pieces to get the musical interludes out. Yeah, that's a thing that's going to have to happen, but something I'm willing to do because we've been doing it for well over a decade, and why not continue the course, according to Colin the Maestro? And you're right. And you're right. But besides time that's going to be taken out of my schedule to do something I'm really going to love to do, I don't got my watch right now. Oh, it's just about that time. It's the witching hour, which means it's time for us to be brought up to speed with news stories from this week from, you guessed it, all around the world. Scott Clark, that one's for you. And in our, wait for it, and in our first news story, and an exciting news for you Mercy Drive fans out there, because it's been announced as of this past week after releasing a single called Tattoo, they would be able to release a brand new album that would go by the name of The Longing. And this would be the first album that Mercy Drive will release in well over a decade. And after listening to their first album for time and time again, first of all, I'm surprised we haven't reviewed this on the Music Village CD review, and at the same time, yeah, really excited that they've released a new album that we may be playing on this very show within the next couple of weeks. Mark my words, folks, mark my words. But if you guys want to go ahead and get your hands on this said album prior to the review we're going to give you most likely by next month, then you can go ahead and head on over to the Twitter page of one man only known as Mercy Drive Band to check it out for yourselves. And nice cover for the album too. And in other news and more or less music metal cover news, for you fans out there who always wondered what a hastily juiced world song of Without Me would sound in metal form, well, None other than State of Mind and Willie Blaze would answer that question for you just perfectly, as we almost tripped up on our words. And the reason for that is because the cover for this song was absolutely awesome for one, and the music video, like they usually do for these songs, is always cool. Seriously, every single music video they've done, especially for Heart Shaped Box, was an absolute hit and awesome in my mind. And here's hoping in the near future we get them featured a part of the show too. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out the metal cover for this said song, then you can go ahead and head on over to the YouTube page of one man only known as State of Mind to check it out for yourselves. And as a little bit of a heads up, I'm hoping in the near future also that they could do a cover of Crisscross Jump Jump. Yeah, I could see them pulling that off. Now, how? According to Carl and the Maestro, most likely on a trampoline. Yeah, that would work. That would work. Better than my idea. Better than mine. And in other music cover metal news, and in what if scenario news, for you fans out there who always wondered what Tattoo's song of All the Things She Said would sound like in the form of Linkin Park, well, none other than 10-second songs would be here to answer that question for you at home. And yeah, after listening into the song, not bad. Now, I'm thinking in the near future that they could do a cover of Not Gonna Get Us in the form of Motorhead. Yeah, I don't know why, but I got a feeling that would work, that or in the style of Soundgarden. Either way you look at it, it's gonna lead to a cool music video with them on the top of a truck. And Carl and the Maestro said, not in the budget, not in the budget. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out this cool what if scenario musical cover for yourselves, then you can go ahead and head on over to the Twitter page of One Man and YouTube page of One Man, only known as 10-Second Songs, to check it out for yourselves. And in other news, and to continue the theme of music news, for you fans out there who always wanted to hear an ABBA song sung in the style of Peggy Lee, well, I have some good news for you. Because Postmodern Jukebox would get on the microphone and the old 1960s microphone to bring you a cover of the song of Gimme 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 by ABBA in the style of Peggy Lee, featuring none other than Lauren DeMarco. Nice! And after listening to this song, here's hoping in the near future we can hear somebody do a cover of Johnny's Guitar in the form of ABBA. But at the same time with Postmodern Jukebox, I guess it would have to be a 60s rock cover now, wouldn't it? And according to Carl and the Maestro, yeah, you're probably on the money with that one. Yeah, I know I am, because that's usually how it works. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out this cool cover for this week that features a classic style from a classic person, then you can go ahead and check it out on the YouTube page of One Man only known as Postmodern Jukebox to check it out for yourselves. And I guess with all those regular news stories out of the way for this week, folks, you guys out there know what time it is. No, Carl and the Maestro, it's not time for us to check the ones and twos, but a great idea after what just happened. Oh, they're looking good. They're looking good. But it's time for us to go into a very special milestone edition of... And step back for this one, and especially those listening on the said live devices, because this is going to get loud in a hurry. Video game news. Now, don't say we didn't warn you. Now, don't say we didn't warn you. And in our first video game news story, and in big news from the world of Game Informer, it looks like Game Informer is finally back from the dead. And for those who are a little bit confused about that, well, as of this past summer, Game Informer, after 33 long years, would finally close its doors. But after so much fan support, and from someone else who decided to support them as well too, Game Informer is finally back, which means video game news with a whole bunch of different form of video game news stories is finally back as well too. And I, for one, am overly happy, not only because we have more video game news stories to mention a part of this show, but also because of the fact of how many Game Informer magazines that we've collected over the years after subscribing to that magazine. And I can only imagine the cool news they've got coming down the tubes for a whole bunch of cool games since they've been gone. And as a matter of fact, according to Carl and the Maestro, they stockpiled all the news that they've had since they've been gone, listed on their website for you to check out right now as we speak. So, well over 8 months worth of news stories on top of new news? They're insane! Perfect for this month of madness! And if you guys want to go ahead and catch up on all the news stories you missed from the world of Game Informer, then you can go ahead and head on over to the Game Informer page of one man only known as GameInformer.com to check it out for yourselves. And in other video game news, and more or less PS Plus news straight from the world of Game Informer. See, we're already catching up. Because the free games for next month, for April, or what we like to call around here, for the month of Fools, will feature several pretty cool games, and one we've mentioned during the show thus far. And the 3 games are as follows. Not only Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, and also would see none other than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But finally, last but not least, and finally in a gotcha form that we thought we would never see, RoboCop Rogue City, now available on the list for the free games that you can grab right now. And seeing the fact that we've already mentioned RoboCop a part of the show prior, and boy oh boy, yes, we have mentioned it and have featured video game stories for it, and mentioned even an instant classic video game review for it. Long story short, go out there, check it out. It's absolutely awesome, and it definitely gives a nod and a tip of the cap to the classic Orion movie series of RoboCop. Minus the jetpack and the silliness of the other 2 RoboCop films. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out all of the free games that will be available as of April Fool's Day, I'm not kidding, yes, April Fool's Day, then you can go ahead and head on over to the Game Informer page, only known as GameInformer.com, or head on over to the YouTube page of PlayStation Grenade to check out all these cool games for yourselves. And as a bit of a heads up, the games from last month of Dragon Age Velguard, Sonic Colors Ultimate, and the TMNT Cowabunga collection will be available up until the 31st of March. And the games we mentioned before will only be available until the Cinco de Mayo, or the 5th of May. Either way you look at it, folks, don't burn daylight on these games. And in other news of the video game variety, and more or less Grand Theft Auto Online news, for you fans out there who always wanted to get a couple of your air freight cargo out of your cargo hold since it's been collecting dust like mines, well, this is the week for you. Because it's been announced for this week that you can get double the amount of money back on air freight cargo sell missions. And on top of that, for you fans out there who are able to use Rooster McCraw, he will be able to haul 2 crates in half the time for you. And for those out there who are able to complete 5 resupply missions for this week, you can get well over $100,000 in your account for that said hauling of the said stuff. And according to Carl of the Mic Show, what kind of stuff? Well, jewelry, expensive contraband, and whatever else you can find. And alongside with that, for you fans out there, for the Oscar Guzman Flies Again mission challenges, still double the amount of money. And double the amount of money for any of you out there who are able to get an extra Moogle or DHH-7 Mule helicopter. You can get some bonus money for that too. And for those out there who finished the Titan job, you can get a bonus $200,000 within 72 hours of completion. Nice! But alongside with that, for the mission Air Force Zero, double the amount of money. For you fans out there who also want to go ahead and get your hands on a Bravati Banshee GTS and others, 20% off. But before we go any further into those said discounts, for the said prize ride for this week, you can go home with the Vapid Cara 4x4 off-road by placing in the top 5 for 2 days in a row. And on the lucky wheel for this week, the Lombardi Corsita, which is a cool looking sports car. Yours if you're able to win it off the wheel. And for the discounts for this week, not only the Buckingham Canada 40% off, the Buckingham Pyro 40% off, the Obey F8 or 8F Drafter 30% off, the Bugatti Tesseract 30% off, the Bugatti Infernus Classic 30% off, the Highway Night Shark 30% off, and the Dinka Postlude 30% off, all for this week. If you guys and gals out there want to go ahead and check out any other cool discounts that are still making their way to the world of Rockstar, then you can go ahead and head on over to the said Rockstar Social Club page, only known as socialclub.rockstargames.com, and check out all of those cool discounts under the Newswire page for yourselves. And I guess with that said for this week, you have all officially been brought up. And one sec, folks. I know it's embarrassing, but we got to get down with the groove. One sec. All right, we're stepping in time. A little green confetti in the shoes, but nevertheless, we're still doing it. Still doing it. All right, enough of that silliness, because you've been brought up to speed. And I guess with that said, I think it's time for us to head back into that music once again. And when we return, we'll be back with the final segment for Music Village for this week, right after this. So don't get lost in that afternoon traffic just yet, folks, and stay tuned. Well, for all you listeners of the madness, have we counted for the month of madness, and especially ladies and gentlemen out there, and Streetlight Crusaders, we might as well include you too, seeing the fact that we are fresh out of time in music, and the traffic is really starting to pick up, we might as well bring Music Village for this week, and for this month of madness, to an emphatic close. But don't worry, if you miss any of this show that we were able to bring you for this week, we got you covered, because you can catch this show again one more time, all the time, on our SoundCloud, Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr pages, still all named the same, only known as Music Village Radio under the hashtag MusicVillage560. Now, for those confused why we didn't include the Live 365 page, for you fans out there who wants to hear it with all the musical goodness in between, you can listen to this show again as of Saturday afternoon at 12. Yep, 12 in the afternoon, high noon, you can listen to this show again with all the beautiful music that was included with it. So yeah, make sure you tune in then. And we would also like to say, on top of all of that, for those out there who is wondering, on our YouTube page, this will also be featured without the music as well too, as of Saturday after the replay. You know, we have to get all these things out of the way now, and Carl and Michael said, good that you're mentioning it now and not later. Yeah, because it's going to get confusing. And if you guys want to go ahead and check out what other crazy and zany things we still got prepared for the remaining days of these Month of Madness, heading in directly into the Month of Fools, like a whole bunch of explanatory things we're going to have to explain a little bit better later on down the road, then you can go ahead and head on over to our YouTube, Discord, and Twitter pages, still all named the same, only known as the Double Agent 0012. And before we head out for the night, we would like to thank, and especially from the bottom of our hearts, you the fans out there, for listening in to a very special traffic fighting milestone Month of Madness ending edition of Music Village. A lot of M's in there. And if you guys and gals out there like what you heard, go out there and spread the word. You know what? Like the cab driver from Zulaplex. Yeah, you know, the PR department knows where I'm going with this one, and they're giving me the thumbs up and is offering me a ride to the Zulaplex. No thank you. No thank you. And we would also like to thank you, the independent artists out there, for doing that musical goodness like you always do. And keep up the great work, guys, and here's hoping you're featured during one of these shows live in the future. And why? Because we believe in you guys. That's why. That, and plus the shows will be much longer with your music added into the mix. So keep them coming. And speaking of people's music that was featured during this show, and oh boy, we've got a big thank you list. We would like to thank our musical guest for this week, none other than Gary Kazula, or Kaluza, with their said song of Soft Landing Spot. Also would like to thank none other than Destiny Law with their song of Good Old Country Music. And also for her other song of I'll Be Single that was featured during this said show. Even none other than Jeff and his Army of No One with their song of U1 DGC Remix. And also none other than Highway Dollys with their said song of The Game. And finally, last but certainly not least, none other than David Torrence with their said song of The Cold Shoulder that was featured during this week's edition of Music Village. And alongside with them, we would also like to thank none other than Tekno AXE with their said song, and Carl and Michael said a bit of a drum roll for this one. And with their said song of Meat Burger that was featured during this week's edition of the DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories. Or more or less the mobile Luigi Jack of All Trades edition of the DJ Smokey's True Video Game Stories. And like always, Tekno AXE, keep up the great work, and we can't wait to hear what you got coming down the tubes next. And the same thing goes for all you indie artists as well, too. And before we could possibly forget, we would like to thank also none other than Carl and the Maestro, who was spinning the ones and twos all night with the very interesting music that they were able to provide, and of course for the song of the Blue Collar Jam session that's wrapping things up for this week's edition of Music Village. And like always, guys, keep up the great work, and we can't wait to hear what you got coming down the tubes next. And finally, last but certainly not least, we would like to thank you, the independent gamers out there, for coming out with all those sweet, sweet video game hits and clips we had a chance to mention during this week's show. And like always, guys, keep them coming, because you never know what show might be coming around the corner next. Hint, 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 hint. And I guess with everybody thanked, you guys out there, we go out. I'm DJ Smokey on behalf of Carl and the Maestro, and of course, for this month of madness for this show, saying, are you crazy? No, not as of 3 weeks ago. I'm all okay. Woohoo! But most importantly, when there's smoke, there's fire. And we'll see you guys next week for a very special foolhardy edition of Music Village. But until then, folks, wrapping things up for tonight is none other than It's Revenge with their said song of Kill Your Radio. Unlike the traditional I'm in Love with My Car by Queen, but we decided to give them the honor for this week. So with that being said, folks, good night, everybody.